You're listening to the Training Talk podcast with Watsy and DK. Dive into strength basics and elite endurance secrets. Whether you're just getting started or you're a seasoned athlete, this is the show for you. Join us each episode as we explore everything from training to wellness, nutrition, and much more. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Training Talk podcasts with your hosts, Watsy and DK. So today we have a guest in our office again. Grateful to have you in, and grateful to have you in, Jen. And we appreciate last week, and hopefully we can dive into a lot more of the knowledge of the nitty gritty and everything else that encapsulates you as an athlete and that encapsulates you as a person as a whole. So I think, I'll just handball it straight over. Oh, by the way, Essendon can't handball. We'll handball it straight over to DK and we'll get right on to it.
All right, thanks, Watsy. Well, welcome again, Jen.
Thank you very much.
We'll fire away with the first question we have for you this week, which is, what has been your favourite event thus far?
I did enjoy WTF, now that I was thinking about it last week. But I have to say the Delirious West, the 100-miler course, is probably, looking back on all of them, my favourite.
Did you do the 100-miler in the wrong direction? Is that the one that you did?
Wait, what?
So 1 year because of, was it fires or flooding or fires?
Yeah.
They actually ran it from Albany, or was it? Yeah, Albany to Northcliffe?
No. So that particular year that you're talking about, they started at Treetops and ran up to Northcliffe instead of starting at Treetops and going down to Albany. So we couldn't get to Albany that year. So.
Yeah.
So I did do it that year. That way is not my favourite. The following
missing a fair bit of ocean that way as well, aren't you? It's a lot of the hard parts of the course twice.
Yes, I mean the course is so beautiful and so varied.
Yeah.
That running south is way better than running north. So this year I did, as part of the Triple Crown, I did the Delirious 100 miles from Treetops all the way down to Albany, and that has to be my favourite. It was very tough, and I took so long to do it, longer than I wanted to do it. But the heat hit me quite bad, and that particular course is so beautiful.
I was at Delirious this year. It was ridiculously hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the Triple Crown, because I know there's you got the Delirious West, Irrational South, and what's the East one?
Unreasonable East.
Oh, wow.
Deliriously, irrationally, unreasonably.
Yeah.
Stupid.
So, for those who don't know, Delirious West is a 200-mile race from Northcliffe in the southwest of WA, Western Australia, to Albany, also in the southwest of Western Australia. It's a point-to-point course. And they also have a 100-mile option, which starts about halfway at the Treetop Walk in Walpole. And it's a beautiful section of Millum track, our famous long course, long trail in Western Australia. So you head from Treetop, you head down to Conspicuous Beach, which is a stunning south coast beach, and then you're pretty much following the coast all the way through Peaceful Bay, through Denmark, through a bunch of little communities and beaches, all the way to Albany. And it's a pretty amazing place. But we had quite unusually warm weather this year, didn't we?
Yes, yeah. I mean, Ultra Series and Sean Kaesler put on such a beautiful event. And I have done the 200 miles twice. And I remember Sean asking me, when did you want to stop? and I said I got to about 160 Ks in and thought, it'd be nice to stop now because it's 100 miles and I still had another 100 miles to go.
Yeah.
And I think that particular year I even went in the wrong direction, and so I added to the distance. I really enjoyed this year doing the 100 miles south for Delirious. Yeah.
And you just missed me because I was at the aid station just north or east of you. So, the trail, I mean, as far as Millum track, knowledge, it's heading south, but it's really at that point it's heading east, isn't it? So I was slightly west, slightly closer to Perth, one aid station closer to Perth than where you started. Helping out at the Giant Tingle Tree aid station with my daughter, which was good fun. We had a great little oasis from the March flies. We had a gazebo with a fly net tent set up inside, so we could see what was going on, and the flies couldn't get in. Although they repeatedly did every time someone opened the door, but they were easy to kill. So I was also going to ask with that event. So that was your favourite event, the Delirious West 100 miler this year. Do you reckon that was also your best result?
Oh no.
No.
Ooh, let's talk about the best stuff.
I would say my best result, which I keep thinking back to, was a few years ago when I went across to Brisbane and I ran the Brisbane Trail Ultra. That was the second time I had run it. The first time I ran it, I came second, and then the second time I ran it, I won it.
Yeah.
And it was pretty. Running through the finish line with the ribbon across it is just like, what? I didn't realise until right at the end that I had actually won. And I won $1,500.
Oh, wow. So
and a watch. And I was like, whoa.
That's enough for a box of hot chips after the run, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. No, so that was the best. And then I thought, I'll try the miler because I love milers. And I tried that last year and it was unbelievably tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the one you won was the 100K? Was it about 100? Yeah, I thought it was a bit longer. Yeah. 110K.
110K. And
if it was over here, Sean would just call it 100. Like.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. He'd never credit you the 10K.
No. I mean,
Well,
I don't know. It's a small round figure. I'd appreciate that. I'd understand wanting to call it just 100.
Don't they like send you off like 5 or 6 Ks in the wrong direction at Delirious?
Yeah, Sean does that.
They do it
I think it's
deliberately.
only a K or something because the very first year that they did it, they sent everybody in the wrong direction. So they felt that, they needed to continue to do that just for that very first one.
Well, you're doing 200 miles. Might as well just chuck on an extra 30K or something.
I don't think they sent them that way. There may have been a marshal there, but I believe that there's like a spur trail into Northcliffe off the Millum track. And so there's left to Perth and right to Albany, and the majority of the leaders went left to Perth. And a few people went south, as they should have, towards Albany. But definitely there was a good handful of people who ran 10K in the wrong direction. So they ended up with 20 extra Ks.
Just the warm-up.
Yeah. Talking about nighttime starts, I was thinking Delirious would be a good event to start at nighttime. If you're listening, Sean, get that fairly unpleasant Northcliffe to Mandalay Beach section out of the way in the dark. I think there's some merit to that.
Well, he does start the 100 miler at 7:00 on the Thursday.
Yeah,
well, he
but
did this year, so I'm not sure.
But you're missing like stunning Valley of the Giants. I'm running that part in the dark. So I think when I went down to take my girls, I took my daughters hiking on the Bilberman track. We did the section from the Valley of the Giants treetop walk to Peaceful Bay, and I felt like it was actually from Walpole to Peaceful Bay, and I thought we were like kind of picking the eyes out of the Bilberman track, like the prettiest, nicest section, and you find yourselves doing a lot of that in the dark, so you're kind of missing out. Whereas that whole section is stunning from about Mandalay Beach to Albany, but the bit from Northcliffe to Mandalay is not very inspiring.
Yeah,
so it'd be good to do it in the dark.
Yeah, I think the bib track is beautiful all the way along. But if you're doing the 200 miler, I get it. I hear what you're saying. Yeah, for sure.
And then I don't know if you hit Mandalay, because most people are going to be doing that Mandalay section. I reckon Mandalay's the most beautiful beach in the world, and most people are doing that in the dark. I think unless they're really slow, and then they're probably getting there the next morning.
I'll probably be in that bracket.
But perhaps you would be, So you reckon the 110K at the Brisbane Ultra, where you got the win,
Yeah,
that was your best ever race?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and tell us a bit more about that event. So how did the training go in the lead in? How did the race itself go? Did you said you weren't aware that you'd won. Were you just thinking about your own race? You weren't following the competition?
I don't tend to race to race. I race for myself. So the fact that I've, won a number of races, it's a bonus for me. So when I started that particular race, I knew that the vert was insane. So for the 110, it's over 5,000 vert. And I knew I needed to train vert because we don't have don't have any vert.
Yeah,
in
good time
WA.
to go to Dave's Climb.
Yes, I did do a bit of that, but I also went to Bluff Knoll and did Bluff Knoll repeats.
Oh,
Shane Johnson got me onto that the year before, actually. So I went on my own before that particular race and just did up and down.
This sounds painful.
How many laps of Bluff Knoll did you get in?
I did 4.
Four's the most I've done as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's quite hard, but it's the only way you can get those hills because
Dave's Climb's actually steeper. So.
Not distance-wise though, like in the length.
Oh no, it's not. It's only a short length. Yeah. So you've only got up to 10 minutes if you're really slow per climb. Bluff Knoll. Yeah, up to an hour.
Yeah.
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 I was going to say, it kind of illustrates or highlights that dirt, vert, and hurt.
Yeah, it is a bit like that. Yeah. And with Brisbane Trail, like if you're running a WA race, you might get 1 or 2 really hectic hills or mountains. But what I found with Brisbane, you go, oh, okay, that's a hill. I'll get over that one and then we'll be done. But it wasn't like that. It would be you'd go up and then you'd come down and there'd be ropes to help you get down. And yeah, it's crazy. And then you turn a corner and there's another one. And you were like, what? Another one? And I very quickly had to get out of that. Well, this is the only mountain here because every single corner had a mountain that was kilometres long. You think that rise is the end, but you get to that rise and it doesn't. It just keeps going. And when you get to the top, though, it's just magnificent. The views are beautiful.
So you're rewarded with your persistence.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I had to learn to love hills, which I really hated, but now I don't really mind them too much.
Yeah, for sure.
There's not a lot of long climbs in any of the events in WA. Like I was just thinking, like Mount Cuthbert, Mount Vincent, and the Feral Pig, like the Power Lines, WTF, Mount Halliwell in the Delirious event, and all of them. Like if you're in, the Power Lines climb is, I think the record's about 10 minutes, and you wouldn't be running at that pace in the ultra.
Those power lines.
And Mount Halliwell would probably be longer. Mount Vincent, Mount Cuthbert. Same.
It's only one, though, as well. Like it's only 1 or 2 that maximum that you'd get in these WA races.
Oh, you have Mount Cook as well. So I guess like you're probably never going to go over half an hour uphill in WA in any of the events that we have on at the moment.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there. Yeah, so
I remember Sean and I when we were doing Tahoe the second morning, so about 24 hours in, we were walking up this mountain and it took forever and it had about 5 like false summits. And I think we climbed uphill for over 2 hours. That was just like an amazing feeling when we hit the top. And then it's like, all right, yes, only 2 days to go.
Only 2 days to go.
Yeah. Well, Jen, I had another question for you. So We've discussed like what you're training for at the moment. You've got the unreasonable 100-miler coming up. Do you want to tell us a bit about the training you've been doing the last few weeks and months?
Yeah, a few people have asked me, like, what is my strength training and what do I do? But I absolutely hate strength training.
As they do.
I'm so unmotivated. At one point I was just trying to go on YouTube and just, Mad Fit, she does some 10-minute core exercises, and I'm thinking, okay, I could do that after my run in the morning before I go to school, but it sort of fiddled out and I don't do that anymore. And I was doing yoga, which was really good, both for my head and, the stretching and that. But I don't. I hate it.
Yeah.
You'd be proud of me, Watsy. I've joined the gym since our last recording session in the studio. So,
mate, that deserves a clap.
So I've done. I think I've only done 2 sessions. I was a bit sore in one of my knees after my first. I did a deadlift PB of 80 kilos, mainly because I underestimated how much the deadlift bar weighed. I thought it was 10, but
yeah, the deadlift, the bars are 20 kilos.
20,
there.
yeah. So I had 60 kilos of weight on it, so it was 80, and the knee was a bit sore. So the next week I only did 70. And I'll be in the gym probably a couple of times this week because, as both of you know, I had a bit of a stack on my bike yesterday, so I'm covered in grazes, and I'll be replacing all my swims for gym sessions this week. Try and keep my upper body strong and fit while I'm recovering from all the skin and bark off.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing is with strength training as well, particularly for runners and cyclists mostly, are deadlifts. So the deadlifts focus on your hip hinge, which is pretty much, so you're picking weight up off the floor, pretty much. You're from the floor straight up. That's all you got to do with it. You got to stand up with the weight. But pretty much everything in your body's worked. And so most of it's indirect, but the main directed muscle groups are the hamstrings and the glutes and everything in your posterior chain. So that's how you're actually able to...
By posterior, you mean back?
Yeah, so your glutes, your hammies, your back muscles.
Everything behind you, yeah.
Yeah, because the way that you actually initiate a deadlift is you pull the slack out of the bar, and then which engages the entire posterior chain. And as you are initiating the lift, you're essentially trying to push the floor away from you. So that kind of creates a pulling motion from the floor to stand up. And once you get to a certain point, this is where your hips can come into it. This is why it's absolutely pivotal that your back remains straight, thus having good core strength. So when you do finish and complete the deadlift movement, you can actually kind of snap in place. That's what the hip hinge is. So it's like as you're picking that weight up, your hips come forward with a straight back, and it requires all that recruitment through your lower back, through your glutes and through your hammies, and even your calves to a minor extent. And so the reason why it's beneficial for runners to deadlift is because the hammies are what powers you through. Your back and your glutes are what powers you through your strides, through your runs. So if those parts are weak, you can develop some lower back issues down to your knees, down to your ankles, because if you're not strong in that chain, you can create things like ankle problems, knee problems, back problems, and all that sort of stuff, which will keep you out of the races for a lot longer than you expect. And the thing is, like, if you get like a dicky foot or a dicky knee or even a slightly dicky hip, you'll probably find that these movements might be somewhere else. Like you might have a sore ankle, but it might actually be a sore left glute, would you believe, because they're all connected in the chain. So when we're looking at deadlift, that's probably the one exercise that I'd prescribe endurance athletes, especially when you're training for something like what you're doing, Jen, because you just want to try and stave off injury for as long as possible. I know it's boring as batshit, but it's also, it's like you find magic in the work that you're not currently doing.
Yeah, I'd reiterate that iron deadlifts are all I'm really doing in the gym. I do like a warm up. I was just telling Jen earlier, like I do a bit of work on my shoulders because I've had a bit of a shoulder issue. But mainly, and a little bit of core stuff, mainly I'm kind of warming up, doing deadlifts, doing a few other things to fill in time between deadlift reps, and then going home. So it's a short session, but I'm using the Aquatic Centre gym, so I've got the membership for swimming as well. So,
and with sessions like that, like if you just go straight into the gym and just do deadlifts, because that's what most people just need.
Yeah.
Like if you go into the gym and you want to do, say, deadlifts, but then you've got other accessory movements that you want to do, you're fatiguing yourself unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Like if it's not necessary, like if you're focusing on perfect deadlift form, other bits and pieces will come in and will complement the deadlift. But for runners, it's to get the deadlifts in to you always try to do things perfectly, but it's not going to work most of the time. Like it's just getting in there, getting the reps done as best you can, and then getting out and just with the most essential work done. So like it could only take you half an hour to do a deadlift session. That's all the work you need.
Yeah, well, maybe not for this event, Jen, but maybe after this one. We don't want to start anything crazy
While you were
just
talking,
before the
I was
event.
thinking, for me, I think that the strength training needs to come in your head, in your mind, and I have been working hugely on that this year.
Absolutely.
My mental health, I have so much mental trash in my head that running for me like sorts that out. And I've really had to, you can be as strong physically and as fit as you can possibly be.
Yeah.
But if your head is not 100% there, then it's not going to happen.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Exactly.
And I know I'm fit. I'm not strong. And as you were talking about those deadlifts, I've got a sore back.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, maybe.
That's a bit of a deterrent.
After the race, Jen, couple of weeks recovery and then
for
get
me,
you on a gym program.
I got to get my head right, and it's about loving myself and remembering that I am enough.
Yeah, for sure.
And surrounding myself with people who are who build you up rather than constantly pushing you down.
Yeah.
And if you can sort that out, then your strength will be there. It'll just be there.
Yeah, and I've heard as well that I've heard about runners, they've never done physical strength training in the gym, and I kind of get a bit confused about that. I thought to myself, why don't you? And then you've just answered that question. So okay, I see where things are going here. So it's very good. Like if your mind isn't strong, there's almost no point in doing what you think you don't need to do.
Yeah, I think with ultra running, the theory that I've heard is about 10% of it's physical and the other 90% is mental. So
100%, yeah. Particularly in like backyard ultras and ultras that are really over 100, 150, 160 Ks. It's not as much about your body as about your head, because your head can just go, okay, I've had enough, and that's it, gone, finished.
Yeah. And that's another thing I want to talk about is I know we've spoken about physical strength, but what about your heart strength? What's your heart like? Or what's your heart rate sort of doing? Like, what do you incorporate heart rate into your training?
I don't do any of that. I know that there are, like most runners, all do all that sort of thing. They look at pace and they look at heart rate and candescence and VO2 this and, I just go on what I feel. And when people have looked at my stats, they are like, well, it's all working and it's all right. And I honestly believe that that's because I only do, if I'm puffed, that means my heart's going a bit too fast. So slow down a bit or stop and breathe. And if I'm hungry on a race, well, then I need to eat. So I don't have this major nutrition plan that's, that works for most.
Yeah,
for me,
sure.
if I'm hungry, I'll eat, and I'll eat food. I don't use Tailwind or any gels of any sort or supplements of anything. It's just, I put soup in a thermos and put it in my drop bag so that when I get to the aid station, it's sort of warmish, and I eat that. I don't have, So my heart rate is just based on how I feel, and I can feel that heart when it's going too fast.
That's the best part about it, is your body is your own personal trainer.
Yeah.
Like, none of this information, like I'm a big person when it comes to like training detail, because I feel that's the only way that I can sort of keep my sessions in a particular target or a zone. Or let's say, like, if I'm at work and I need to do an hour run, I'm trying to keep it within a particular area. But if I just try to run without a watch, without heart rate sort of thing, and just use my own mind, yes, I could probably end up running faster, and my heart rate might be through the roof. But because I'm so unfit at the moment, it's easier for me to kind of lean on the heart rate side of things. But when you're extremely fit like yourself, and you're training for all these mammoth races, a lot of it does come back to your previous point about what's in your heart and what's like in your mind as well.
Yeah. Also, I'm 53, so if I did, 220, take away 53, what is that,
67?
I'm not allowed to take my heart rate higher than that.
But that's
ridiculous.
And that particular 220 minus your age, that's only a very generic beginning sort of thing. So it's.
I mean, my fitness age is not my chronological age, and I think that plays a huge part in this whole heart rate thing.
Yeah.
I also think if you're a female, it's different again. So, male coaches need to consider the fact that if somebody is a female, that there are different times of the month.
Yeah.
Again, everything plays a factor in these things, and you can't really. Well, I don't think you can really take, anything as baseline.
Yeah, there's a fair bit of personal individuality with the heart rates as well. Like one of my friends, I see his heart rates on Strava, and I can't. He'll run a marathon at heart rates I couldn't get to in a 3K time trial, or 3K race up Bluff Knoll. Like my heart rate very rarely would get above 160, and I don't wear it very often, and I don't have one on my watch. But when I was wearing it, I spent probably 6 months wearing a heart rate monitor for most runs, and I think the highest I got was 170, and that was in a 1 hour trail race, and it was the last 5K, which was slightly uphill, and there was someone 20 seconds behind me, and so I was racing for the win. I hit 170. Well, I sat on 170 for the last 5K, and I don't think I've got anything higher than that, unless it's a palpitation.
It's just one of those things that it is a training tool. Like you can use it as a guide, but even the electrodes or the sensors that you have on your chest straps, it won't be 100% accurate as it is anyway. It's only giving you a guide. So I guess when I train, or when I used to train, which I'm going to go back to in a minute, I'll be coming knocking on your door, Davo, for a coaching plan pretty soon for my running eventually. It's going to be about really listening to yourself and how you've known to prepare in the past. And so once you've relied on that, you can develop a good foundation, and all these heart rate metrics and all these sort of things, which may be important to others, might not be important to others. So no, thanks for sharing that. Really appreciate it.
I also think it's important to know your why.
100%. Your why is the number one thing, because without your why, there's no point.
You're just going to do it to do it, and really it's not. Yeah, you might not get there if it's only I'm just going to go and get it done.
Yeah,
you might not get there because your why has not been found.
So, Jen, next question for you.
Okay.
What events would you like to do in the future?
I know. I don't know. I don't like to plan too far ahead. I don't know. I would love to do Coast to Cozzy, but that is just, I think, I was talking to Margie this year when I went to Wild Dog with her, and it just requires too much.
It may be quite awkward
Yes.
on a teacher's schedule.
Yeah.
Like,
I have the best boss.
okay.
So
that's helpful.
she is. What can you do? What can I do to help you, Jen? Like that. So, I see what you're saying, but
I have a trailer out in the oval.
We don't have an oval, but we have a paddock. So yes,
That's good enough.
yeah, I just, you have to have a pacer and you have to have a support crew, and it's not in WA, and you know my village that helps me, my Eds, and you know Trevor and people like that. They're here, and to ask them to help me out in a different state, that's a huge sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I just don't think I can actually do it because I need the rules require you to need help. So
you do need a minimum of 2 people, but I'm sure you would be able to find some helpers. I was blessed to have Alexis come over and help me out from WA, and I also have a cousin who lives in Canberra, and he came and helped as well, and he ran further than he'd ever run by about 6-fold. So I think he'd run a half marathon. He ended up doing about 60k with me, and then not too long after that, we trained him up for the UTA 50k in the Blue Mountains. So, but yeah, that was bare minimum crew of 2, 1 driver, 1 pacer, and you're not allowed a pacer really until dark on the first night. So you're allowed one up this big hill climb at 70k, and then you're not allowed them again until at about 120. But yeah, it worked well. They did kind of get annoyed with me. They're like, "Come on, Dave, you're slowing down. We want to be home in bed by 30 hours. So if you're a lot more than 32, you're on your own." So I had to get a bit of a move on the second morning to make sure I finished it off quickly.
Yeah, well, see, all the big dudes have done Coast to Cozzy in WA, so I feel like I would like to do it. But I'm not a big dude, so I don't need to do it.
I think, if you, if you just went online and said, "Look, in WA, I want a couple of crew. I need a couple of crew," then I think you'd be able to find someone. I don't know if it's still the same now. Like, when I first started ultra running, there were so few events that people just wanted to be involved. So in WA especially, if you weren't racing an ultra, if there was an event on and you weren't racing it for whatever reason, you'd want to be there helping out because you only got to see your ultra running friends like 3 or 4 times a year. So it was like, all right, I'm not going to run that one. I'm going to crew for somebody, or I'm going to do an aid station, or I'm going to help out in some way. So, but I think Coast to Cozzy, because it is still like it's quite a small event, limited to 50, if that's still the case. I believe it is. There's people who want to be involved who may not have a runner that they know, and the crew spots used to sell out just as quick as the running spots for Coast to Cozzy. So I reckon you'd be able to find a couple of people keen on helping out, especially if you can bring one over with you. Yeah. Trevor, call out for you.
I'm just reading a bit about the Coast to Cozzy at the moment. It says the race commences at Twofold Bay near Eden in South New South Wales in Australia and finishes 240 clicks later at Charlotte Pass. After summiting Mount Kosciuszko, Australia's highest point, just 60 runners have up to 46 hours to complete the race.
Yeah.
60 runners.
It's all the big dudes have to do it.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of that race that Rich Roll ran, Ultraman, I think it was. All the big guys in a running space ran that race.
They have in the past, and I believe it's there's certain ways of getting in regardless of ability, but it has been a kind of a merit-based application process. So it's not first come, first served. It's like everybody applies to race and they will select the 50 or 60 maybe now runners who they believe who are most capable of finishing it.
Yeah.
Is there like a lottery? Would there be a lottery set up?
No,
or
it's
something?
not. No.
No.
So it's the people they most think are likely to finish. So if somebody comes and they help Jen as a crew member, they will give them some kudos for that. They will be like, well, this person has come and they've crewed Jen. They know what they need to expect. They will give them a certain level of
Priority. For
of
selection for the
priority because they know what the event's like. When I did it, the year I did it, there was a runner who came in off the wait list and he had a qualifier of 207 for 24 hours. And he only came in off the wait list because they believed there was there was 50 people who were better qualified to finish than him. He hadn't, I don't think, helped with the event, as I hadn't coming from WA. But yeah, that shows like the level of like elite athlete who was running it.
Yeah.
This was 2014 that I did it. So obviously there were very few, and there still are very few females who are capable of running 207 K in 24 hours. Jen's run just under 201. Probably would have run 207 if she didn't have a like Suki Lala at 45 minutes to go. But yeah, so they do save some of those spots for the female runners as well. The way I think they do it, and it's kind of good that it's not completely open because then they can kind of pick and choose a little bit of their own personal preference. But I believe there's like a certain allocation for females, a certain allocation for people who've crewed and volunteered at the race, and a certain allocation for elite runners. I think that's the way they select it. So yeah, it is an elite event, but Jen's more than qualified to give it a crack, I'm sure.
Maybe
Yeah.
one day.
Well, we'll just have to when you do let us know, and we'll be able to see if we can get a website up, and we'll post your like live tracking details and sort of stuff, because this is where this whole place is going.
Oh
It's like
gosh, what have I done?
The whole of Western Australia will be following you, Jen.
Oh, no.
We're gonna make
bated breath.
we're gonna make you famous.
I like to go under the radar. You know what I mean?
No,
I'm sort of
that's
like,
not gonna happen.
Yeah, so I definitely think that would be pretty cool to see. I haven't seen any West Australians do it for a while. Did
I know,
Margie do it?
did it, and she won.
Yeah.
And there was really bad weather.
Okay,
last year.
that's fairly common.
Yes.
The year I did it, there was fairly bad weather too, but it wasn't particularly cold. So
Yeah.
it had been fairly cold. So 2013, Ewan came over to run it. To run WTF, and he'd done, that was his third Coast to Cosy victory, and he got snow blindness because there was so much snow on the mountain that he was having trouble seeing. And then the year I did it, I believe we had 250 mil of rain over the weekend. So the first day was just kind of torrential, but then there were fine breaks as well. And then I finished at I think it starts at 5:30, so I think I finished like 11:20, just under 30 hours on the Saturday morning, and it started raining about 10 minutes before I finished, and it really didn't stop for 12 hours. And about midnight that night, they shut down the mountain because they just thought it was too dangerous to send people up into the storm. So
It's crazy.
Yeah,
It's dangerous as well.
that wasn't like the worst weather they've had by any stretch, because it was fairly warm. Like it wasn't snow. It was like just rain. Although, as we were driving down the mountain, because you finish in the middle of nowhere, as you drive back to the nearest town, which is 50k away, a lot of the verge was covered in hail. So whereas I'd been running in the rain, below us it had actually been hailing, like at probably the kind of 1,500 to 1,800 metre mark, it had actually been hailing. But up where I was in the 2,000 metres above sea level, it was only rain, which was fortunate.
I'm going to have to try and be a aid station member at one of these events, because that's how I want to get involved in the ultra marathon community. Because once I'm all right and once my foot's good, I'm going to start running the races that you guys talk about. And yeah, because I'm only sitting over here like listening to just pretty much in awe, like I'm amongst. I kind of feel like I'm amongst ultra running royalty, so it's like.
No.
But just I've got,
you are with Jen. What's he?
Absolutely. I'll be knocking on your door for a coaching program soon.
No. Whoa.
I just wanted to finish off with this one, and I think it's one that's very important considering what you do, and that's nutrition. How do you eat? Do you follow any particular guidelines, or do you just go by what you feel, how you feel on the day? Like, for example, do you prioritize proteins, carbs, fats, whatever? How do you go about, fueling your races and day-to-day nutrition?
I just eat proper food. I'm a vegetarian, so
Okay, yep.
in the lead up, well, it's not really in the lead up. I just make sure I have my 3 meals a day and that they're healthy. And then maybe the night before, I've got my sort of gluten-free pasta.
Yeah, for sure. That's calorically dense, so that's what we need for that, for your training.
Yeah, and then at the morning of, I'll have the oats and the bananas and the eggs, and just really fill myself up.
Yeah.
And then throughout the race, it's just food. It's, I'll have sandwiches at lunchtime, and I'll have dinner at dinner time, and in between I'll have, bananas and, muesli bars and things that I would normally eat during the day. I just make sure I eat them.
Well, isn't that the main thing? Is that when you're training and when you're actually preparing for a race, it's not to change your nutrition habits as much, or if at all, if you need, because, if you try to change your habits close to the event or even on the event, you might actually do yourself a mischief.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good guide. I think we'll probably have to do a full podcast just on nutrition at some stage. Maybe we'll get
100%.
An expert in to talk about it, and then I can tell them everything that I've done, and they can tell me whether I'm wrong or right.
Wrong. Yeah, no. People are probably going, "Oh my goodness, she doesn't take this and she doesn't take that."
But the thing is, you run 250,000 miles.
Whoa!
of what you just said, so it's it's got to work. It's clear that it works.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of tweaking here and there might benefit.
Yeah.
But the fact that you've got a very good foundation is the most important thing.
Yeah. I don't overload with sugar. A lot of those gels and things like that have sugar in it, and you get a high very quickly, but a very low, a low very quickly as well.
And you probably find that you might have some indigestional problems as well with your guts.
Yeah, gut issues.
Yeah, if you are looking for gels that are low in sugar, the Hammer Nutrition gels are only about 2% sugar. So they're actually lower in sugar than Wheat Bix, and Wheat Bix don't really have added sugar. So yeah, they're very low in sugar. Most of the carbs in there is complex carbs. All
right, well, thanks, Jen. Thanks for coming down again and having a talk to DK and I on the podcast. We really appreciate it. And where can we find you on the socials, Jen?
Under Jen Millum.
All right, cool.
Oh no, but I also have an Instagram with my sister called Cook Sisters 2.
Cook Sisters 2.
Which is a bit of a play on words, because we're a bit cooked.
So cooked, sorry, not cooks. Cooked.
Cooked. It's also a South African sweet.
Okay.
You called the Cook Sister. So.
We'll make sure we put all those in the show notes. Remember, it's cooked, not cooks.
No, it's Cook Sister, one word.
And if you are really excited about going to learn about Coast to Cozzy, that's probably where you could contact Jen and sign up to be a crew.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe this year. What do you reckon? Or maybe next year?
I don't think this year. It's also funding as well. It's not a free
It's
sport.
not a cheap race at all. Hire car, transport, and then accommodation, and then taking finding accommodation for more than just yourself as well, for your crew as well.
What I do love about this ultra running community is that it's always, how can we help you? Like Sean Kaisley is really good at that as well. He's like, what can I do, Jen, to help you? And surrounding myself with people like Dave and Sean and my boss.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's great.
I don't know if they've still got the same setup. I believe it's now earlier, but with Coast to Cozzy, there was always, the process was you'd apply, I think like early winter, late autumn, and then they would select the candidates
Okay.
on WTF morning. So I remember like the first WTF we were running like towards the first aid station, and the other guys would be like, oh, I got my coast to Cozzy confirmation came through this morning. So like this is like a long training run.
Yeah.
And there was like a bit of a prerequisite that you had to have run 100-miler within the last 12 months that was the kind of main prerequisite for selection. Thanks so much for coming in, Jen. We'll
welcome.
we're really grateful for it, and it's great to have you as our first guest.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Righto, Jen. Thank you very much. Thanks, DK, for finding time to speak to us on the podcast this morning. You can find us at trainingtalk.pod, but you can find me individually at trainingtalk.watsy. Thank you, guys, and we'll enjoy the next episode. Right, see you guys.